It's 7:30.
7:30.
I'm thrilled. I'm Lendon Gray, and as the chair of the Dressage Foundation and the president of Dressage for Kids, I'm thrilled to have this collaboration between the two organizations to help everyone with their knowing about and filling out grants. But that's all the talking I'm going to do. I'm going to turn it over to Mary and Sara to carry on, and Jenny, sorry, to carry on. They do all the work. I'm just going to sit back. Go, somebody.
All right, I will go ahead. Thank you to Lendon, Mary, and Dressage for Kids for having us on tonight to talk about the Dressage Foundation. My name is Jenny Johnson. I am the executive director of the Dressage Foundation, and I'm here tonight with Sara Weiss, who is our director of grants and programs. Whenever we're at events or shows around the country, we always have people that tell us that they had no idea that there was financial support for dressage enthusiasts. So we are really happy to have the chance to share a bit of our story with you all. And first, because it's dressage, the basics. The Dressage Foundation, or TDF, was started in 1989 by Lowell Boomer in Nebraska. Years before that, in 1973, he was also one of the founders of the United States Dressage Federation. So for 35 years now, TDF has worked to cultivate and provide financial support for the advancement of dressage in the United States. TDF is a 501c3 nonprofit, and while we do work very closely with USDF, USEF, and other organizations, we are a separate foundation. We have a small staff of 2 full-time and 2 part-time employees and have an incredible board of directors, including Lendon, who volunteer countless hours of time and energy to ensure that TDF is doing all that it can to help U.S. dressage. So basically, TDF raises money, manages it, and gives it away to support the education of riders of all ages and levels, instructors, trainers, judges, breeders, show managers, technical delegates, and even more. Because we are not a membership organization, our only sources of revenue are donations and returns on our investments. All donors are therefore an incredibly important part of our TDF family. Donations come to us in all sizes, from $5 to 5 figures and more, and each and every donation has a positive impact on our sport. And it's because of those amazing donors that we have awarded millions of dollars to support the dressage community. Every year, grants are awarded across the country and to people involved in nearly every aspect of the sport. At this time, we have nearly 40 separate grant funds, and from these funds, 100 or more grants are awarded in total every year.
Hi, as Jenny mentioned, TDF does have a wide variety of grants. We like to say that we are here for you in the beginning of your career, all the way to the end of your career. You can find all of the information on our grants on our website, which is dressagefoundation.org. That's where we house all of the information, the grant deadline, grant application deadlines, and our online applications. We also publish our grant application deadlines on social media and through our e-newsletter. So there's just a few ways that you can learn more about TDF. TDF, besides all of our grants, we also are hosts of 2 programs. The first is our DREAM program. The DREAM program provides a fully funded week-long immersive trip to either Wellington, Florida or Aachen, Germany for young riders. We just announced that we are returning to Aachen in 2025 for our DREAM program. So if you are between the ages of 21 and 25 and training and competing at 4th level or above, make sure to check out our DREAM program. The application deadline is January 15th, and we're just really excited about it. If we are also home of the Century Club, which is for horse and rider teams that together their ages are 100 or more. To become a member, they have to complete a USDF recognized test. In the last few years, the Century Club has just exploded, and we're welcoming over 100 new members every year and are over a total of 800 members. If you haven't read anything about our Century Club, we highly encourage you to go to our website and read some of their stories. They are very inspiring. So before we get into our next top tips for writing a grant, we do want to point out that there are a lot of grants available for equestrians. If we could skip to the next page, Mary. Thank you, sorry. These are a few organizations that do have grants. We suggest looking first within your discipline. In dressage, we have TDF, obviously, Dressage for Kids, and USDF GMOs. We also suggest you may want to look into breed organizations, any state organizations such as horse councils, or groups like the Pony Club or 4-H. We hope these next tips that we give you about TDF grants are tips that you can use if you apply for any of these grants or scholarships. Each of TDF's grant funds have different criteria, but they are all based on receiving more education in dressage. Whether it's for lessons or clinic, education is a key point. We hope that this slide on how TDF grants have been used gives you a few ideas on how you can apply to write for a grant, and this can be part of your training plan. All right. So now we're going to get into our top tips. The first one is start early. Make note of the application date and make a plan to apply. At TDF, late applications are not accepted. Many applications are submitted at the last minute, and you can usually tell. Plan to start early so you can take your time to really answer the questions and to gather needed items like letters of recommendation, and most importantly, proofread. The second thing you want to look at is, are you a fit for the grant? Read the criteria carefully and maybe more than once. Make sure you qualify for the grant before applying. If you don't meet the criteria, don't apply. But if you don't meet the criteria yet, mark your calendars and apply in the future. Next, you want to make a plan. Organizations will require you to describe how you are going to use your grant funding. At TDF, this is your training plan. You want to be as detailed as possible, even if some things are up in the air. You should have a plan of who you want to train with, the time frame, and the specific goals for the training. This is something really important, is to make a draft of your grant application. Currently, the Dressage Foundation's website does not allow you to save your applications. So once you start, you need to finish, or you'll need to start over completely another time. We hope to change this in the really near future, but this is how it works at this moment. Each of our grant funds has a downloadable Word document within the application. So we suggest you download it and type your answers into it, and then copy and paste those into our online application. It's a good idea to do this because it's easier to proofread, and then you can use it for future reference, for future use. The next item is to gather. For most applications, you need to include attachments like a budget, letters of recommendation, or videos. We'll talk about this a little bit more in depth in just a bit, but gather these items as early as possible to make your life much easier. These are not last-minute items to try to create or to collect. Finally, proofreading. Do not let poor spelling or terrible grammar be the difference between you receiving a grant or not. At TDF, we do not expect you to be the next Shakespeare, but we do ask you proofread your responses, spell check, spell check, spell check. Next, I want to talk about some of those attachments that you will need for TDF grants because they can seem a little complicated and daunting. The first is our videos. Some of our grants require a video of you riding. The first thing to do is carefully read what type of video is requested, meaning what levels should you be showing, movements, and should it be training versus competition. Videos can make or break your application, so please take your time and try to submit a high-quality video. A few tips are below, including film horizontally, not vertically, so we can see everything. Be aware of light, noises, and your background while filming. Wear light-colored breeches and a light saddle pad. Be neat and tidy. Use a tripod to minimize shakiness and keep the horse and rider in the center of the video. Dressage for Kids will be publishing a document that has even more video tips in the near future. So make sure to keep an eye out for that, because I've read through it and it's a great document and will really help you get the best videos you can get. Some of the other attachments that you'll need are a budget, a copy of your scores, and letters of recommendation. I will show you a sample budget on the next slide. But just to talk about budget really quick, be as clear as possible and make sure your numbers add up. Double check your math. We are looking for a simple line item list of how you will be spending your grant funds. Depending on the grant, you may be able to include travel expenses such as trailering and gas. Budgets can be intimidating, but please do not hesitate to reach out about these. Your scores. Some applications ask you to include scores. The scores should be of the horse that you are planning on training with. You should really only submit 3 pages. The record number of pages we had was 40 at one point, and that was just way too much. 3 or 4 pages is a great number for your scores. Lastly, letters of recommendation. The most important parts to remember about letters of recommendation is that you should ask for them in a timely manner. You do not want to rush people. And make sure the letter writer knows you and what you are applying for. I also want to point out that letters should not be from family members. And each of the grant applications will give you a suggestion on who you can ask for letters of recommendation. So this is a simple budget example that I put together and that I'm happy to share with anyone who would like to see it further. But really, as you can see, 3 columns that just describe what is below. And with, hopefully I got the math correct. I double checked, but this is just a simple budget example for you when you're applying for a TDF grant. Finally, the things that I just mentioned are some tips that I hope will be helpful, but I just have a couple other items just to share with you from my time working at TDF. Grant writing can be really tough. And although TDF is working on being able to award more grants, we cannot award every application we receive. Many of our grants are highly competitive, and just because you are not chosen for a grant, it does not mean you're a bad writer. It does not mean you do not have a good training plan. It just means it wasn't your time. We hope that the tips that we gave you tonight give you a leg up for when you apply next. We also want to let you know to remember that the results of the grant committee's selections are not personal. You may have to apply more than once or twice. And as always, please call us with any questions you may have. We are very, very happy to help. So sometimes the grant process at TDF can be a little mysterious, and we don't mean it to be. So I wanted to share with you just a little bit how our process works. After you've been, next slide, sorry. We first accept applications, and again, our deadlines are pretty strict, so make sure you get your grant in before on the application date. After we've received all the applications, I send them to an independent selection committee of dressage experts. They will meet to determine a recipient, and then the TDF board of directors will review their choice. After that, we will share it with our recipient, send out a press release, and celebrate the good news. Now, the fun part, if you are awarded a grant, this is another area I just wanted to talk about really quick because, again, it can seem complicated. So I wanted to just share with you what happens when you receive a grant from TDF. The first thing we'll do is we will send you a check for 75% of the grant that you received, usually a month before your training. The remaining 25% will be paid after your training report is received. So the report is very important. We require the report for two reasons. One, to make sure your training was completed in a manner of how you applied. And two, because we share these reports on our website and sometimes on social media, and this helps spread the word, this spreads the education you learn to others. You never know what you are going to read that may be the spark that changes the way you ride or is a great opportunity to learn something new. Our reports are either written or video and include photos and a final budget. Your reports are a great place to be creative and share how this grant impacted your dressage journey. So now we will be taking, I wanted to mention we will be taking questions about our grants towards the end of the webinar. If you did have any that you wanted to ask, and you can always put them in the chat and we will read those at the end. But now I will pass it over to Jenny.
Thank you, Sarah. And again, feel free to send in those questions now, or if you think of something later on, we're always available to help by email or phone. So stories from our grant recipients are some of our favorite things to talk about and stories to share. The one that you're going to hear tonight is even extra special. It is my honor to introduce our very esteemed guests to talk about their dressage journeys and how TDF and D4K have both helped along the way. Sabine Schut-Kery has twice received TDF's $25,000 Carol Lavelle Advanced Dressage Prize, which she used in the years leading up to her and Sanseo's silver medal performance at the 2020 Olympic Games. Sophia Chavonelle participated in our 2019 Young Rider Dream Program trip to Aachen and has also been involved in D4K programs. She met Sabine while she was training in Florida with the help of a TDF grant. And now I will let them tell you the rest of the story. So thank you, Sophia and Sabine, for joining us, and we will turn it over to you.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Who do you want to start?
That's up to you guys.
No? Okay. Hi, everyone. Again, thank you for having us. And I just want to share, I got I call them the bigger grant, and it was incredibly helpful because I went one time to Europe just right before Sanseo came out at Grand Prix. And the second one I used, like you said, leading up to Tokyo. And I stayed in the US, but did more intensive training. And the one thing that I think is really important, no matter what the fundings are, is to make sure you put the money into a chunk of training. So meaning you don't just do one clinic and then you do another clinic. I thought the most helpful was like I did the 2 months, and then I went actually 5 months to Florida before Tokyo. And just because dressage is so complex, it really has helped me. I think it's hard to go in and out of the training, and it mimics more the structure it has in Europe due to the smaller country, obviously, over there. It mimics more what they have available over in the smaller countries than what we have, and where the training becomes more intensive in the sense of you understand more on an everyday base where to go with the training. Now, a lot of people are probably going to say, well, I run a business, it's really hard to leave for that. But I think, it's also important that you show the Dressage Foundation how committed you are. And it is always a little bit of a sacrifice. And a lot of people are always a little bit worried about that. But I always say, you may not see the return in the moment when you sacrifice time away from home and you don't make the money you're normally making, but it will come back through your success, because you also step in a different bracket if you have been successful of who you are and what kind of business comes to you. It's not an instant, but it will come back later. So that was one thing I always invested in the future, and it has really paid off. Also, I always told my clients that I'm not just leaving. Sorry?
Speaking of my own, it's like a sucker.
Oh, okay. So you can still hear me, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
You put
I think
the grant.
somebody's
TDF
not on mute.
So I think the other aspect, I remember also my clients or people saying, well, you're going to be gone for longer. Like in my case, it was 2 months. But I always explained, look, I come back with more knowledge. You're going to benefit from that in that way. And I think any client, you have to also explain them they should be very happy if a rider seeks for an educational opportunity. And I think in dressage, first of all, it's my personal passion. I even moved states because of my education. It's very close to my heart. I love it because every horse is different. Dressage is super complex. And you just, that's a beauty actually of our sport, that you never stop learning. So I think that's a good presentation to your client too. And yeah, just to say a little bit about the experience with Sanseo, I mean, it really, he could be a little bit, he was a stallion. It was really nice for me to see how he is with travel. I could do a couple shows in Europe. And it was just incredible to also be away from your business and really focus just on your horse and yourself. And I remember like every day I had the time. I didn't bring a groom. I really got to spend a lot of time with my horse, which is really, really, really important to get to know your horse. And I had enough time to also go work out. That was also really important. I do believe in that you have to be fit. We expect our horses to be fit and have posture in their bodies, and we have to have that too, especially when the horse is not always in balance. We need to be capable of maintaining our balance when the horse is not. So I made a couple notes so that I don't. I do remember I was very overwhelmed by the application, and it is complex, and it should be. So it takes a little time. Like you already pointed out all the points that you should start early. The one thing I also will add to that, because you need recommendation letters from high-ranked people, judges and coaches. I have been a couple of times on the other end of a grant, meaning where I had to give a recommendation letter and people asked me last minute, and it was very stressful. So also to show your professionalism, and I think it's also important that for the person you are asking to give them enough time. It's really difficult when somebody asks you and you want to help, and then you ask, by when do you need it? And they pretty much tell you in 3 days. That's hard. So on that end, it's also really important when I remember that. And I asked for help, to make the binder. I mean, what's in the application, I do everything, but I just asked somebody to help me, and they made a beautiful binder. I made copies for myself to keep. I still have them. They're a great memory. It's fantastic to look back on such a special grant. So I made a couple of notes. I think it's also really important to show the Dressage Foundation. It's such an amazing opportunity we are getting, that you really show a good plan in place. Again, where I think personally a bigger chunk of training time together is much better than just spending it on a clinic here and there. So to show a really good plan that shows the foundation how serious, how committed you are to the sport of dressage and what your goal is. Yeah. And then again, it's just so good to also really have your brain away from everything you have to run at home if you are a professional, or even if you're whatever grant it is. I mean, we're all busy no matter what, but it's really, really nice and helpful. I even do that for my competitions. It gets busy, but I try to really make sure to focus. And then during these educational periods that the Dressage Foundation enables you, that you really experience that you can be really focused on your horse and the training and make notes. I love making notes from my lessons, and because when then busier time comes, it's nice to look back. It's also interesting anyways after a few years to look back what you've been working on 5, 6, or 10 years ago. I think that was pretty much it, what I could think of. Yes, yeah, so unless you have specific questions, that is a little bit what my experience was.
Thank you, Sabine. We appreciate hearing your experience and your perspective, and we'll hear from Sophia now. And Sophia, you are an assistant trainer with Sabine, is that correct?
Yeah, I work for Sabine. I have for
Yeah.
3 years now, 3.5 years. I kind of just help with anything she needs with all the horses and everything. My grant experience with Dressage Foundation and also lots of other programs has been different from Sabine's in that I've been very lucky to get lots of smaller grants, as well as obviously the big Dream program grant that I got. So I get to talk about that first. It was 5 years ago now, and the program has changed a lot, with going to Wellington. Obviously, when I went in 2019, it was the last time the program went to Aachen for the big show, the big CDI. And it's exciting that it's returning next year again. I'm super excited for the people that'll get to experience that. It was absolutely life-changing. I agree with everything everyone else has said about applying. I mean, that was a months-long process for me. Weeks of getting letters of recommendations from people, and they were pretty lengthy from what I remember. Essay questions that I had to write about, and getting a riding video and scores and all sorts of things. So that was definitely something I had to plan well in advance. It was a program that I knew for a long time I wanted to do, so that wasn't hard to, plan for me. But that's definitely something you have to do, is plan ahead and be super organized. And I had lots of people proofread it. And then as far as the program itself, it was really amazing. So not only did we get to, it was me and 4 other girls and 2 chaperones. And so not only did we get to go and experience all of the dressage at Aachen, including the eventing dressage, we also got to meet with everyone we wanted to meet, basically. Every morning we would sort of sit down for breakfast and say, okay, who do we want to meet today? And we'd say Carl Hester and Stephen Peters and Mary Phelps and all sorts of people. And our chaperones were really great at helping us really get connected with those people. And they were all super generous with their time. And we basically just said, whenever you have time, we met with them and we could ask them anything we wanted. It was a very wide variety of people. So it was not just riders and competitors at Aachen, but it was also, we met with almost the whole judges panel that weekend. We met with a bunch of the vendors. We talked with, like I said, members of the press. We talked with, anyone we wanted to, we met with. It was really, really cool to get to pick their brains. It was also super helpful. Something that I tried to keep in mind was, depending on who we were talking with, sort of keeping in mind questions that I had for myself at home, whether it was for riding or for other things in life, sort of keeping those questions in mind to talk to the professionals about. We got some really great advice. And then at the end of every day, we all sort of gathered together and wrote a journal. Sort of together, we all had our own journals, but we also wrote one big essay at the end of it. And I always love going back to that and rereading sort of everyone that we got to meet, everything they had to say. It was a really incredible weekend. It was very inspiring. Let's see. It was also really cool. The connections that we made. I mean, especially obviously, we're all still in touch as girls and the chaperones, but also, you know, the people that we met were really helpful, saying if you ever need help. We met with some younger professionals that said, hey, if you ever want to reach out. One girl, Bridget, I think also with Lendon's help, got a job with Dorothy Schneider for a while. She was inspired by our trip to go and do that. So definitely lots came out of that program. And then as far as my other grants I've gotten, the two listed here I've used for the Dressage Foundation, both the SIP program and the WIT program. Those were really great. Those were both, the SIP program was it ended up being 2 months, and then the WIT program is 3 months in Wellington, where we all brought our horses and we trained with Lendon. And that's another very involved program. There was fitness involved, and then there were lectures every single day where, similar to Aachen, we met with lots of different professionals from different industries in the horse industry. And yeah, that was also very inspiring. And of course, that's where I met Sabine and got this job, was from the WIT program. So that was very rewarding for me. But beyond that, I've also used grants for going to the USDF convention. I think I've gone 4 times I've attended the convention, which I really loved doing, and I wish I could do it more, but it's hard to fly all around the country just for a weekend. But that was also really interesting, seeing the inner workings of the USDF. And I think those are the big ones that I've used grants for. I hope I'm not forgetting anything. Yeah, are there any questions?
Sophia and Sabine, can you talk a little bit more about how you met, and then how you started your working relationship, and also what have you both learned from each other? What's the top thing you both learned from each other with your current partnership?
I specifically contacted Lendon because obviously, I mean, it's an amazing program and I love it. And I think, you know, I knew that I will definitely have a baseline for what I needed at the time, or even now more. But, you know, it was before Tokyo, so I still had Sanseo. So I really wanted somebody that already had experience and came out of a really great program. And that, you know, seemed to be proven. And I think, but the biggest part that I think makes this relationship work on my end, especially, is that I feel like Sophia's in the business for the right reasons. You know, it's like for her, the horses are number one, and the welfare, and I know she's always going to treat each horse as her own. And you can really see there's passion and love. And yeah, I almost would say to the point where she puts herself maybe a little bit behind. I mean, not to an unhealthy way, but in a very positive way. It's quite amazing to see. I mean, she's not the first one that I worked with. So I do have experience with other people. But most of, yeah, I haven't experienced anything like her. But no, it's really, and she's very smart girl too, and she picks up things and self-motivated. You know, if you see people also putting out there looking for an assistant, and that's why she started as a working student, but I gave her very quickly a title of being an assistant because she really has her own area. I don't have to look constantly over everything. And she's very self-motivated. She's very interested. She has a lot of interest in saddle fitting, in farrier work. I mean, she worked with our farrier on the side so that she'll be able to take off a shoe and maybe put on a lost shoe one day, you know. And I love that. And with everything, she does all my veterinarian stuff. So that's one area because I have a lot of, also I have to, you know, take care of clients, and most of my clients don't live on site or in town. So it takes a little bit managing that and giving updates, etc. And lots of talking and teaching clinics and things like that. And so I started with saying, okay, how about you take over that area? And it works really fantastic, I would say. So I couldn't be more thrilled. And I hope I think it's important also for somebody that applies for a job like that. You know, it's great to hear from me to say all these things, but what I would look out for is if I was in the shoes of Sophia, is that she also gets her education in the saddle, and I'm really adamant about giving that back to her. And you know, I hear often, yeah, that lessons are promised, and then yeah, at the beginning you get them, and then maybe not so much anymore. And I'm very and I do it with lots of joy, really, to give back to her, besides obviously paying her. But part of our agreement is her education in the saddle, because I hope one day she steps also out of her position and becomes actually a trainer. And because I think, again, she would be a huge asset in the saddle also in this industry, because to me, she loves the sport and the horses for the right reasons, and her personal goals are never, you know, sacrificed from. It's always, how do I say, it does, I see often where that becomes more the priority, what's happening in the saddle. I see she's patient, but also has goals and wants to reach those goals. And I'm really proud of her also, what she's done with her own horse. Just a couple, I think 2 years, or maybe now 2.5 years. She took it from the first time showing third level, and now she's showing it I1, and not just showing it, but getting really good scores up to low 70s. So that is also something. So she has a lot of drive everywhere. It's not just she's good with the management, but she's in the saddle just as good. And I know I can put her on any horse. The way my business is structured, it's maybe not where, you know, I always try to keep my business small to protect the passion I have for the horses and the sport. So I'm not one of those barn where, you know, people get to ride 5-6 horses. It's, she came with her horse, and then I have a couple she rides with me. But on the other hand, I also know I can put her anytime on any of my horses. I think, I mean, that's our relationship a little bit. As I said, she's self-motivated, extremely committed, very reliable. I mean, I rarely had somebody work for me where I know exactly when I leave town, I don't have to worry. And obviously she came to me with good knowledge to begin with. But we don't stop learning, right? Anybody loves also, we know, working with horses, it goes longer oftentimes. There's never a long phase or you know, a complaint about when hours go a little bit longer. On the other hand, I'm also trying to not do that, because I'm very careful of burnouts. I don't want anybody around me to be burned out. That's not right, because again, if I'm sitting on the computer, it's one thing, it's my choice if I want to be burned out or not. But working with animals, it is a responsibility to be fresh and enjoy what we're doing. And in order to achieve that, you can't, you know, work too long hours. I think that's, I mean, honesty was also something that's really important, you know, because especially when you're gone, that is also something Sophia really is. And when you ask what our relationship is, I hope I went in the right direction, that these are the things you wanted to touch on. Or if it was something else, then ask me, please.
That sounded great to me. Why don't we, Sophia, did you have anything you wanted to say about your meeting with when you guys met and started building a relationship from there? As a young professional, especially.
Yeah. I had a little bit. I was just gonna say my side of the story for meeting Sabine was when I was in the WIP program with Lendon, and I was not really even looking for a job. I was very happy. I was at my previous barn 10 years up in Maine, and Lendon was the one who really encouraged me. She was like, I think you should really go and move to California and take this position, and I'm very glad I did.
I remember she did say, she said, I have a really good girl, but I don't know if she's ready to leave home.
Yeah, I was really not looking to leave, but and I think I met you 2 times before I moved across the country to go work for her. So that was definitely a risk, but I'm glad I took it. I was just gonna say, I mean, it's very hard to follow what she just said. That was very flattering, but I would just say, I mean, I reciprocate everything that Sabine said. I've never had a boss like her. I feel like we can communicate so well, which is what I appreciate the most in our relationship, that she's super easy to approach and talk to. I never have to worry about coming to her with things. I think 2 times in the past 3.5 years, we've had like a real sit down conversation about like what we are looking for in each other. And it's always worked out super well. She always listens to my needs. You know, if I say I want, you know, more of this or more of that, it's like, okay, let's see how we can make that work. I always feel super encouraged, like what you were saying too with the farrier work. Like I was super interested in learning that. Actually, that sprouted when we were in Europe last summer, and our horse lost a shoe right before going to Herbalo. And the little German girls in our barn were like, what, you can't tack the shoe on by yourself? I was like, okay, well, now I have to learn how to tack on the shoe. So, but anyway, and so, yeah, she's always encouraging me to do stuff like that. And then I say, I need more riding opportunities. And last month, I think I was riding 4 horses, 5 horses a day, which is hard in our small program. And I really appreciate having a smaller program, because I've done that where you have dozens of horses, and I've learned that I do not like that. I really like having our little tight-knit group and knowing our horses really, really well, and our clients really well. I really appreciate that. And I also just wanted to shout out my old trainer, Tanya Rennie in Maine. She's celebrating her 40th anniversary this August of her farm. I was with her for 10 years, and I feel like growing up in that farm was really where I learned to have the desire to learn new things always. Like I was able to grow up a total barn rat. I was at the farm dawn till dusk every single day during school and during the summer. And I was always encouraged to help with the vet appointments and with the farrier appointments and with like all of the hands-on stuff. Even as a 14-year-old, I'm sure I was more getting in the way than I was helping. But that's where I really sort of learned to ask questions and really sort of learn about all aspects of horse care. And I think from both of the great bosses that I've had, that's been really helpful.
I also, in regards to the grant, I think it's also, or in general in horse training, it's nice if riders also stick a little bit. You may switch here and there with coaches, but I really believe, and I have always done that. I think I can still count my coaches on one hand, because I'm very, very committed, even when we're going through spurts where things don't go so well. It would never cross my mind that I should switch trainers or it's my coach's fault. I know exactly what's going on, and it's most likely me. But I think it's important for a coach to feel that commitment also in regards to a grant. It's also nice to see if you spend that money or invest it in maybe a small selected group or one coach or whatever it is, but not jump around and try to experiment. I think the foundation would rather see that has been sorted out beforehand, and that the grant is more specifically already has a place to go in terms of trainers. And you know, the coach, my coach in Germany, his name is Jan Nevel. I spent 2 months with him, and my long time, and I know him from my time in Germany before I moved to the US in 1998. So we have a really long-term relationship. But my close coach and mentor is Christine Trauwig. And I think we work now, it goes back to like 17 years. And the fun part is that she has been, you know, by my side since Senseo, since I got Senseo, since he was 3 years old. And I think it's just such a nice and amazing journey that she, you know, went with me all the way to Tokyo, and we could have such a successful rides there and performance. So I think that's pretty special.
Sarah, should we do the last little bit and then open it up for more questions and let people gather their thoughts to get questions in the chat?
That sounds great. We have a couple of questions already. So if you have any questions about anything you heard tonight, feel free to add them, and then we will get to those in just a bit.
All right. Yep. We'll be right back with you. It's Sophia and Sabine. We're so grateful that you guys are both here with us. And as you all can see, and as you know, the dressage community is a really special one. Everything we do, like they say, is for the love of the horse and the good of the horse. So as you're looking for ways to support and connect with fellow horse and dressage lovers, I'd encourage you to get involved with D4K, TDF, your local dressage club, or even other organizations in your area. Ways to be involved in those organizations. On the next slide, we'll show, of course, donations of any amount are very appreciated. We also encourage you to volunteer and to spread the word about the great work that all of these organizations are doing. And if you ever have suggestions on how TDF specifically could help the dressage community with other grants or programs, please reach out to me and Sarah. We are always more than happy to chat and hear your ideas on what we can do to further the sport. So we will now get to those questions.
Great. And why don't we start with those in the chat, and then we will open it up for anyone else who might have a question. So Aaliyah, I hope I said your name correctly, asked, what is the minimum age requirement for the grants? That's a really great question. And it's sort of hard to answer because each of our grants have different requirements. We do have a grant that is specific for youth and young adults. And so that is for riders under the age of 25. Some of our grants are 25 and up. Some of our grants have a specific age from 25 to 35. So it's really important to, again, go to the category of grant that you are, whether you're an instructor, a youth, a young adult, or an adult amateur, and look through the grants and their criteria to see if you're a fit for any of those. And then always, again, you can ask us. Abby asked, how do you decide when the right time to apply for a grant is, especially when you may need to apply multiple times to hopefully eventually be rewarded with one? Another great question. We have all said numerous times to not wait for the last minute, but you also do want to apply once you've had your training plan, you know, when you've really thought through your training plan. So there is sort of a window there. You know, anywhere from 2 months until the deadline, I think, is a great time frame. That gives you enough time to gather all those attachments, to talk to your trainer, or to determine what what clinic you want to attend for your training. Anything further out from that, you can absolutely apply. Our grant applications are the same every year. So if a grant application is due on September 1st, 2024, it'll also be due September 1st, 2025. So you can apply at any time, but I would suggest making sure that you have given yourself the proper amount of time to make sure your training plan is achievable and that it works for the trainer that you want to work with, or that you're able to be a part of whatever event you would be applying for. Hope those answers. If you need more information, feel free to write it in the chat. All right. Did anyone have any other questions for myself or Jenny or Sabine or Sophia?
This is Lendon. I would like to add a strong comment as someone who reads or who looks at applications for various organizations. I want to strongly suggest you, as soon as Mary posts the suggestions for videos, I'm just amazed at the videos that are often sent in where I need a telescope to find the horse way down in the end of the ring, usually covered in dust, kicking up dust. Really think seriously about how easily we can see something useful in your video. So that is one of my favorite suggestions. Now you have another question.
Yeah, that's a great thought though, Lendon. That's very helpful. So Iris asked, if I am interested in eventing and not just dressage, are grants still applicable? As long as it's for dressage education, the answer is yes. Dressage is obviously a part of eventing. And so if you are an eventer, but you want more dressage education and that is what you are applying for, it is absolutely applicable. We do have 2 grants, and they're pretty specific grants. One is for Michigan youth, and one is for Region 9 adult amateurs. Both of those funds are named after 2 ladies who really loved eventing and dressage, and so those are just eventers are allowed to apply for those specifically. But if you do want more dressage education, our grants are available for that. Okay, we have another question from Audra. Can I still apply? This is a hard one. We've just had this discussion earlier this week, Audra. Can I still apply for a grant if the horse I'm applying with could possibly be sold in the future? Would I be able to transfer to another horse? This happens a lot, and not only with sales of a horse. Horses go lame, people get hurt, things happen with your training plans after you have applied for your grant. What I would suggest in this case is if you receive a grant and your horse is sold, the first thing you would do is contact us and explain what's going on. We will then ask for you to update your training plan with the new horse, and the selection committee will then review your new plan. It really depends on some of the circumstances, but we do understand that things can change in the horse world very quickly and without any warning. And so we do want to be as flexible as we can. Any other questions?
Anything for Sabine or Sophia? Now is your chance to ask them whatever's on your mind. I would love to know personally, Sabine, what are your plans right now? What horses are you working with, and what are your goals for the future?
I have right now a few young horses. I mean, they're actually starting to get to FEI. I have 8-year-old stallion. His name is Gorgeous Latino. I got him when he was 5, and then we qualified for Ermelo for the 6-year-olds, and that was a fantastic experience to take him to Europe and do that. It's always, you know, inspiring to go to Europe and see the standard where dressage is. And I think, you know, everybody in the Dressage Foundation and with the grants and even in the US, all the programs, it's just really inspiring, but also very motivating when you see that. And I get more motivated and see the amazing horses and riders. And then I did last year the FEI, the 7-year-old class, and took him to Chicago, and he won there the national championship. And then this year he will be doing the developing Prix-Saint George. So we are trying to go to Chicago with 2 horses. Then I have Sonnenberg's Jersey. That was a newer ride. He was already trained to small tour when I got him. Last year I did for Chicago the developing Prix-Saint George. He won his division. And then this year I'm moving him to small tour, the I1 national championship, and qualified him for that. And yeah, the goal is to develop them hopefully to Grand Prix, and hopefully have another horse maybe to represent the US in a team format. And then I have one younger horse. Unfortunately, he got injured right after he came over, so that's a little sad, but it's nice when you have a few others. When I had Sanseo, it was always very hard when there was little bumps on the road. And then I have a 7-year-old gelding that I'm competing at 3rd level and trying to develop him too. I mean, really, in a nutshell, just young horses. I really enjoy having them at a young age and see where we go. The sky is the limit, right? When I got Sanseo, I certainly did not expect to end up at the Olympics. So, but I always say a little bit the saying, you know, work hard in silence, let success make the noise. So I don't like to predict anything, but the goal is to get them to Grand Prix and develop a couple other nice partnerships that represent beautiful dressage.
Aaliyah asked, is there an age requirement for the horse that you enter with the grants? We don't really have an age requirement, but many of our grants do require the horse and or the rider to be competing or training at a certain level. Again, it really kind of comes down to the criteria of the grant. And then Mary has a question for Sabine and Sophia. What kinds of workouts in the gym and what diet and nutrition do you follow?
Want me to go? Or do you? I don't get, go.
Well, for me, I don't know if it counts as working out, but it's made a big difference in my riding the past year is working with a what would you call Britta?
Is she a physio?
It's like a physical therapist kind of, but she specializes in riders. She's not so close. She's about an hour away, but I spent like a good couple of months going to her every single week. I have a history of some old injuries that have been adding up as I'm getting older. And she's been really helpful in both coming out to the barn and watching me ride and helping me with my position on the horse, and then also fixing my body off of the horse has been really, really helpful. And she gives me exercises to do. And yeah, that made the biggest difference for me in the past couple of years in my position. And then other than that, you know, I go to the gym when I can. It's harder in the summer. We start a little earlier and whatever, but I go to the gym, I do a variety of things, and then I love running. But I feel like that's more of like a mental exercise than it is physical. So, and then, yeah, just eating as well as I can, drinking lots of water.
Yeah, for example, I don't like drinking water, so it helps me when I put my bottle there and make that a goal that it's empty. It's that way, but my body kind of tells me when I need protein, and I sometimes need some chicken, but you know, I love salads. So I try to just eat healthy and stay away from sweets. And I prep food like for lunch. I love eating, so I could not be all day without food. So I have little meals in between and try to make sure that it's not something too sugary or fattening. But I'm also not, I wouldn't say I deprive not doing it. I hold back. I don't deprive myself. It's just like I don't go crazy, you know, when I do eat sweets or maybe something that's a little bit fattening. And workout, I mean, remember, I'm a little bit older in age. For me, cardio is important. I do feel when I ride through a test that my stamina gets a little bit weak. It has helped me for Tokyo a lot, especially when it's hot. And the rest, I just love like kind of Pilates style and exercises where it's my own body weight. But like I said earlier, I always find, you know, that the horse is not always 100% in balance. Well, when the horse is out of balance, I sit on their back. They're gonna manipulate or influence and will get me out of balance. And that I have enough strength to stay in balance, but in a supple way and not in a way where I have to force it because I don't have enough strength. So that's where my strengthening training comes from. It's not so much on machines in the gym, but more with my own body weight, certain exercises that give me enough strength that it becomes easy. That's my to-go to, and just a little bit general fitness. But I'm lucky. I love hiking. I live in a beautiful state, so I do that a lot with my dog and my husband. And even that, because sometimes I used to think, oh, I'm not running, you know, or maybe I don't feel always enough, fresh enough or motivated. But I always say, even an hour walking with the dog is better than nothing, because yeah, that's kind of a little bit my mantra or to go to. Yeah.
Great. Well, just to be aware of the time, we do have one more quick question we're going to ask, and then we will wrap up for the evening. So our final question is from Gashern. Again, I hope I pronounced that correctly. Probably not. But Sabine, how do you think riding in exhibition style shows has helped you as a dressage rider?
I get that question a lot. So you know, most of the time I don't realize things because everything just happens naturally. But I think I'm pretty comfortable with riding in front of audience. So I think there was some, I mean, I still do get nervous, you know, that nobody will ever take away. And I think it's healthy to be a little nervous, and you just have to channel that in the right direction, because being nervous also represents attentiveness. So you're definitely more on, and that's what you want. But I think it has helped me to stay focused on the horse and not be like maybe attracted to clapping and veer off and react to that. But kind of stay more focused on my horse and being able to shut the surroundings out. Yeah, I think. And the other thing is, what I always loved is the mixture between the discipline when you write a test, meaning that on Saturday at 2:34 you have to nail it. You have to go from letter to letter. And what a huge amount of throughness that takes, and relationship and partnership with your horse, to being able to deliver that day in that moment, that time, no matter what. But so there's a huge respect and passion and love to achieve that and what it takes. But I do like that I started a little bit, I want to say maybe on a looser side with doing exhibitions, because it was really beautiful when I was young. It was a group of girls, and we learned everything from riding side saddle. You know, I learned how to drive a four in hand, and I learned how to sit on one horse and have one on long lines in front of me, or teaching them how to bow on command and sit and rear. And I think that's very playful and very having fun with your horse and building a relationship with your horse, and looking at the horse a little bit more as a partner or friend, where competition sometimes can get quite serious. And I find myself, I constantly have to remind myself why I ride, and my personal competitive goals. I always have to put them back in balance with respecting the animal and the horse and their needs and their time frame of how they can learn versus what my goal is. And through the exhibitions, it was just, everything was literally wrapped around in fun, because we also were a group of girls. And I remember we were trying to promote my boss Friesians in dressage in Germany. And just as an example, my Friesian was really good at flying lead changes. We had another one that had a really good piaffe. And so the five of us would go in, and everybody could showcase their best trait or what the horse could do best. And then I remember I would take advantage. My horse, I didn't know really, it was definitely me. Couldn't get the piaffe very, very well. But when another one would do something and the audience would clap, I was thinking, okay, now I should ask him a little bit of the piaffe, because he got excited from the clapping. So everything is much more based on what it feels in the moment, versus I have to do it at A after, some other movement. I mean, I have to follow a pattern and a requirement of a test, versus an exhibition that you can implement a lot of your feel, and you can develop a feel of when is a good moment. And yes, first it's based on the moment, but then you do give aids for the piaffe, and then the horses learn more playful, and later on he would piaffe for me, because I actually trained him all the way to Grand Prix then. And so I think it's a good mixture of having the opportunity to implement so much feel, but then yet also the art of classical training, really, and carrying that over into the competitive sport.
Great. Well, I think because we are over an hour, we will wrap up for the evening, but we want to thank all of you for coming and joining us tonight. And like we've said before, we are always available for any questions or comments that you may have. I know I especially want to thank Sabine and Sophia for joining us. Jenny, did you have anything else you wanted to say?
That sums it up pretty good. We're grateful for the time tonight that everyone gave to us. And again, to Dressage for Kids, Mary and Lendon, for hosting this and using their expertise on the Zoom side of things, so we didn't have to rely on our technological ability. So I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your summer, and visit us at dressagefoundation.org to learn about our grants and programs, or email us at info@dressagefoundation.org as well. So thank you all, and have a wonderful evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.